If you grew up during the late 90s, then chances are you might remember the group Citizen King, who were best known for their catchy tune Better Days and The Bottom Drops Out. It was all over radio and featured in one of my favorite shows growing up, Malcolm in the Middle. Some people thought Better Days was a track by Sublime or Sugar Ray, and it was sometimes labeled that way on file sharing sites. You might also remember Citizen King from the soundtrack for the PlayStation 1 game Street Skater. But what happened to the group? Well, the answer isn't entirely clear, and it seems like something awful went down. But let's see if I can piece it together. Citizen King's history begins in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the late 80s and early 90s. There was a band that predated Citizen King called Wild Kingdom. Wild Kingdom was made up of 2/3 of the members who would later form Citizen King. Wild Kingdom's sound was a mix of funk, punk, and ska with a horn section. They would make a name for themselves thanks to their live shows that saw them interact with the crowd, blow fire, and dance. They even had a hit on local radio with the track Squiggly Bone. The 4 members of Wild Kingdom who later formed Citizen King included turntablist Malcolm Michaels, keyboardist Dave Cooley, drummer DJ Brooks, and bassist Sage Shwarm. DJ Brooks got drum lessons from legendary drummer Clyde Stubblefield, who played with James Brown's band. Brooks' dad was actually friends with Stubblefield and was a saxophonist with Sly and the Family Stone. Meanwhile, turntablist Malcolm Michaels was originally a breakdancer and appeared on albums by Garbage and Smash Mouth. Dave Cooley, meanwhile, at the time was named Dave Schneider, and he later changed his name to Cooley, taking his mother's maiden name. Wild Kingdom would end up breaking up in 1993, and the 4 members I previously mentioned would soon hook up with a guitarist named Kristian Riley and a vocalist named Matt Sims in 1993 to form Citizen King. Sims had previously played with a local ska band called the Pacers, and it would be his older brother who played guitar with Curtis Mayfield, Barry White, and introduced Sims to music, and he had a pretty eclectic record collection that influenced his younger brother's taste in music. Sims would reveal about the origin of Citizen King's name, revealing in a press release that old Orson Welles movie, that French king who used to go out dressed in rags to see what his subjects were saying about him, and that former governor of Louisiana, Huey the Kingfish Long, whose slogan was, "Every man is a king." Sims would end up meeting Michaels when he tried to bum $5 off of him to see the band Fugazi. Michaels gave Sims the $5 and they soon became friends. As for meeting their guitar player Kristian Riley, they would meet him at a bowling alley. Cooley would tell an interviewer, "Bowling is a huge part of Milwaukee life. Everyone bowls. Our guitar player worked behind the counter and the rest of us would show up at the lanes with different groups of people. We would frequent the same place and vibe off the music. Eventually word kind of got around that some of us kind of knew how to play instruments. Now our motto is a band that bowls together, stays together." The band would have a revolving lineup of bass players before Matt Sims took over vocals and bass by 1997. Milwaukee by this point had long been associated with beer, Laverne and Shirley, a clown museum known for its unicycles, and tack wrestling. Instead of a mat, the floor is covered in tacks. That sounds painful. And of course, the band Violent Femmes. The members would describe Milwaukee's musical scene as being, and I quote, "messed up," adding that superficially it looks like any other American city, adding, "but the artists there are messed up and cool, maybe a little weird. Everyone's a little more abstract and it's a little more mixed. It's not like New York's pure hip-hop scene or San Francisco punk, although we're trying to get everyone together." But that's not to say Milwaukee wasn't influenced by those scenes, because it was. Sims would tell Billboard magazine, "Everything comes through here. The stuff from the New York underground music scene comes through Milwaukee before it goes west, and vice versa. And people are a little less biased here because we're in the Midwest." Citizen King would end up citing Beastie Boys, Run DMC, LL Cool J, and the punk band Fear, as well as Fishbone, as being some of their biggest influences. The members were also adamant that they were not a frat boy band, but an all ages and accessible band, claiming that most of the people who came and saw the shows ranged between 14 to 40 years of age. In fact, basement shows were a big part of the band's early history, with Sims telling the Daily Illini, "Basement shows are our history. There's nothing like tipped over couches, single light bulbs, $100 instruments. That's how we cut our teeth." Citizen King's sound would be classified a number of ways, including jazz, funk, and hip-hop. Michaels would tell an interviewer that the style of music the band played was, and I quote, "We ride the fence on a lot of stuff. There's something called postmodern. We're way after that. We blend the best elements of rock, soul. We try to put them in a future sense. We're trying to do a balancing of the past and future." Citizen King would play a ton of live shows around Wisconsin and in Chicago, developing a regional following. Even during their first year together, they got a ton of press in their home state of Wisconsin, becoming darlings of the indie music scene. They would even be tagged by Billboard magazine in the regional and unsigned acts column. Citizen King would be discovered by Speech of the hip-hop group Arrested Development in 1994. Speech actually went way back with the band, dating back to high school, having known the group's drummer and keyboardist. They would even play some shows together during the Wild Kingdom days. Citizen King's drummer DJ Brooks also appeared on an Arrested Development album previously. Michaels would tell a publication, Speech and some of his people in Northwestern played with Wild Kingdom. We all went to college together at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. We were always checking out tapes and stuff. After Speech got huge, we didn't see him for quite a while. The next time they did see him, the band transformed into Citizen King, and Speech counted himself a fan. It was at the band's request Speech would co-produce 3 of their songs on their Brown Bag LP, which came out in 1995 through Don't Records. Citizen King would also release a 5-song EP the following year called Count the Days, and they played some shows with Fishbone. Citizen King soon played in Austin, Texas at the South by Southwest Festival, and they would get on the radars of major record labels, and they soon nabbed a deal with 510 MCA Records. The label had actually been created by the former management team of Rancid, The Offspring, and Green Day. However, the deal would fall apart, but soon enough, Citizen King would be snatched up by Warner Brothers. For their major label debut, they would team up with Third Eye Blind and Smash Mouth producer Eric Valentine. They would release their major label debut, 1999's Mobile Estates, which was created in their basement studio called Bionic, which was located in the basement of an abandoned warehouse. A lot of Wisconsin is found on the songs on the record. Jalopy Style deals with being broke and making the best of it in the Midwest. The song Close for the Weekend deals with when the band's singer Sims was arrested for disorderly conduct at the Milwaukee Maritime Days Festival, while Bill Hilly is about stereotypes people have about Wisconsinites. Milky Way even samples the 1960s tune Milwaukee Polka. The track Basement Show would be preceded by a phone message that a neighbor the band used to rehearse next to left for their manager. That neighbor would be labeled by the band as the Bearded Monster. Sims would tell the Arizona Republic, "There's this crazy wino who lives in a tent above us with his trucker wife eating Cheerios and Fruit Loops, drinking Schlitz malt liquor." Even on the phone message, you can hear the band playing in the background. Spin Magazine would claim that Citizen King were making music for people who had attention deficit disorder, since they had so many different styles and sounds on Mobile Estates. Then we had the breakout hit of the album and Citizen King's only hit song of their career, Better Days. Sims would talk about the inspiration behind the song, telling Billboard, "It's a narrative about where our band was 3 years ago. I was working at a dollar store, I had no money, and I wasn't happy. I decided that it had to be all or nothing. I don't miss those dollar store days, although I do miss stealing stupid crap from there." Adding, "We've seen when things were bad and had to get over it. We've had to pay our dues and stuff. You know that line in the song, 'My toes are busted'? Our guitar player Kristian Riley got a couple of his toes chopped off by a lawnmower." Better Days would peak at number 16 on the Modern Rock chart, while it peaked at number 98 on the Hot 100 chart. The band with Mobile Estates would see a lot of comparisons to Beck, Sublime, Brand Van 3000, and Beastie Boys. The band were shocked at their success, with Sims telling Billboard, "Whatever anyone does in Milwaukee has to be pretty bold to get heard." The success of Better Days was a blessing, but it also created some confusion amongst the band's new fans. Sims would tell the Arizona Republic, "It's always funny when we play a live show because people are truly expecting our whole gig to sound like Better Days. That's just one little aspect of the album." A second single titled Under the Influence would be released, but it didn't really get any traction, and they also had a song in the Ben Stiller movie Mystery Men, and Better Days also appeared on the soundtrack for Gone in 60 Seconds. But in 2000, the band seemed to hit some rough times. There were some canceled gigs, with one gig being cancelled in Wisconsin, and the band would cite creative differences within the group as leading to the canceled show. But despite those internal tensions, the band would win Artist of the Year in 2000 at the Wisconsin Music Awards. But in 2002, the band finally disbanded. No members have ever talked publicly about the split, and the only clue we have as to what happened came from the group's longtime manager, Jeff Castells. He would give an interview to onmilwaukee.com, revealing the band was 85% done their second album when the split happened, and he would reveal, well, what happened is a good question, and one that I won't go too far into. I will say that what happened is one of the saddest things I've ever been involved in, and to some degree, I still can't believe that all the work we did went up in flames almost overnight. But that is what happened, and based on the reality at the time, it had to happen. I suppose that is all I will say out of respect for everyone. I want to give a shout out to the YouTuber Prater, hope I'm saying that right. He posted a video about Citizen King a few years ago, and it seems like he has some background on what happened with the split. Allegedly, there was a non-disclosure agreement in place not to discuss why the band broke up. He even tried contacting the ex-members of the band to do an interview, but nobody wanted to speak. Someone would comment on his video, and this is pure speculation, but based on the evidence that the group's frontman left the United States, is not on social media, and now lives in Germany, and what the manager said, this statement seems to make some sense. The commenter would write, "They broke up because Matt was hurting people. They tried to put him in rehab and get him help, and he bailed. Warner Brothers knew the legal storm that would have come, and they were happy to let the band be a write-off. They didn't want to continue with another singer, as it would have been hard to perform songs they all wrote together." In the years since their split, Malcolm Michaels has put out solo records, he's produced albums, and even co-owns a studio with Kristian Riley. In addition to owning his studio, Riley has also gotten into music production. DJ Brooks, meanwhile, has his own DJ company called Best Man Music, while Dave Cooley would end up becoming a pretty successful producer, working with the likes of Silver Sun Pickups, Jimmy Eat World, and Paramore, to name a few. As for Matt Sims, after the band split, he moved to Los Angeles for a bit. He became a model and later moved to Germany and started a solo project called Mount Sims, putting out his first record in 2002. He continued releasing music and even did remixes for artists like Madonna. His music would even appear in the snowboarding video game AMP 3. He would admit in a 2002 interview with onmilwaukee.com that he no longer speaks to the guys in Citizen King, and he would change his name to CEI by the mid-2010s, and he seems like he's been pretty quiet over the past decade or so. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, use the link in the description box below, and we'll see you again, Rock and Roll Your Stories. Take care.